Good morning. Time for Morning Cafe, and I'm happy that you could wake up very early in the morning just so you can tune in as I take you all the way to 9 a.m. as we take a look at the stories making headlines across the world. We take a look at what is of importance to you, some of the stories that have been compiled by my editorial team, and so much. So we'll also be taking a look at the newspapers, as always, the norm on just trying to put some sense into what has been captured, and equally having that candid discussion on the issues that surround you. We'll be picking up like 2, 3, 4 topics that we delve deep into on the current affairs segment. But importantly, we'll also be having a session later on, that is toward the last laps of the program, 8 to 9, to discuss a bit of social issues, which is very, very important and pertinent to you. So I'll be updating you on what exactly the topic of discussion will be as we proceed with the broadcast. And all this while, I'd expect you to interact with me. Hashtag Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela at TV47. Let's get to hear what you have to say, the issues that you'd want us to address. We'll be here to sample some of your comments as we proceed. We also update you on what is happening on the roads, because it's important that you know what to expect, especially this chilly morning in Nairobi. You know, anytime you see the rain, Nairobi is always pathetic when it comes to traffic. Let's see whether it's going to be a bit different, especially right now that many of us are at home, the quarantine manenos. So let's delve deep into understanding, let's update you, and let's have fun and educate ourselves all together. My name is Linda Alela, and the program is Morning Cafe. I'll have a host of analysts who will be joining me to expound some more, give a comprehensive look on these subjects that I have picked on. But on the newspaper review, I'll have Nerim Wako joining me. She's actually on standby via Skype as we take a look at some of these stories. We have the Standard newspaper, the People Daily. We also have the Daily Nation, the Star, and all these other newspapers. So we'll try and scrunch on the time and see what it is that we can capture within all this. So let's kickstart. And as the number of COVID-19 infections in the country continue to spike, a number of state agencies have been affected by the transmissions, with some even closing down operations. So Zainab Mohammed with the details of this particular story.
Over 100 days since Kenya recorded its first case of the novel coronavirus, infection rates have continued to surge, with government offices not left behind in the COVID-19 ravage. Offices in the Ministry of Lands, the ICT Ministry, the National Treasury, the Judiciary, Parliament buildings, and even the Public Service Commission offices are reported to have been affected, some even closing their doors or downscaling their services. The Ministry of Health now warning that these cases in workplaces will continue to be reported if Kenyans will not take proper precautions in the fight against COVID-19.
The virus will find itself in public offices. High offices are not an exception. We will continue to see many different places where we will find that there are cases of infection, that there is spread of infection, and we need to be able to move in quickly and try to stop that spread of infection. So if we have today infection cases at the ICT offices, I think it is not a matter of surprise, it is an expectation.
The government is further appealing to NHIF and other private insurance service providers to review their policies and accommodate the effects of COVID-19 pandemic to its beneficiaries in matters such as covering the payment of COVID-19 testing that is proving to be unaffordable to most Kenyans.
NHIF, the entire insurance industry, I think is in a situation where they have now to look at and review their policies, because coronavirus was not there before. It was not there when the policies were set and the exclusions and inclusions were set. I think it's a process now of reviewing this and seeing what it means, what the implications are in terms of cost and what can be covered. But I can tell you that these discussions are ongoing, not only with NHIF, but also in the private insurance industry.
The number of COVID-19 cases in the country has risen to 11,252 after 461 people tested positive in the last 24 hours, and it is spread across counties.
Patikana, Nairobi ina watu 248, Machakos 97, Kiambu 20, Kajiado 15, Migori 14, Busia 12, Nakuru 11, Laikipia 7, Nyeri 7, Kilifi 6, Lamu 4, Uasin Gishu 4, Kakamega 3, Kisii 3, Kisumu 2, Makueni 2, Mombasa, Taita Taveta na Bomet 1 kila county.
In counties' preparedness, the Council of Governors says counties have continued to progress towards the right direction. In a statement to newsrooms, the council says in total the counties have set up 271 isolation centers with 12,034 beds, 447 ICUs and 437 ventilators. Elsewhere, all National Assembly committee sittings will only be done virtually as from Tuesday, July 28th. This is according to Speaker Muturi, who ruled that all committee sittings remain suspended until the said date, when necessary measures will have been put in place to accommodate virtual meetings. For TV47, I'm Zainab Mohammed.
Thanks, Zainab, for the update. And crossing over to the number down on your screen, or what has been captured on the People Daily, Corona wreaks havoc in offices and workplaces, wars as operations in several key government departments have, of course, leading to corporations and hospitals have been scaled down or halted altogether after hundreds of employees tested positive of COVID-19. This story has been captured on page 6 of the People Daily, even as we take a look at the numbers as of yesterday. And 11,252 confirmed cases so far. 3,068 have recovered so far, while we have 209 deaths registered as of now. This is from yesterday's report, and 461 people tested positive in the last, of course, 24 hours as of yesterday's address, from 225,495 samples since we first tested the first case. And of course, the first case was reported in the country, and painting a very worrying picture, Nerima, if you can hear me, in regards to where we are headed. And like we've said, operations have closed down this time around, not because things are tough, but simply because some of the employees have contracted COVID-19. I mean, cause for alarm. What way forward, especially when we look at this and it's happening within the government entities?
Thank you. I think at this point, I saw a message circulating yesterday on my WhatsApp.
Yeah.
People were saying it's getting to a point that we actually know somebody who has contracted COVID-19, or are aware of an individual who has died from the disease. And it's concerning because it's so easily spread.
Yeah.
Fortunately, as human beings, when you're warned about a risk for such a long period of time, you actually start to put your guard down. So what we have is people not being able to remain at home because, frankly, they have to be able to go and sustain themselves. There was a report or a story yesterday in the Daily Nation of a young mother who went to Kenyatta Market with her daughter. And so we have more people who have to leave their house to be able to work. Some of them have to go with their children because they can't have somebody at home to watch over their children. And so we have more people who are at risk. So while we have that, we have people who don't have access to sanitizer. Right now in matatus, it's very difficult to find sanitizer. Some of them, even on Kiambu Road, they are not even social distancing within the seats in the matatu. So now we're seeing the guidelines not being obeyed. People are now having meetings. There's no social distance in the meetings. They're in rooms. There are more than 15. So I think it's one of those things where the government had initially warned us that there's going to be an upsurge. As a matter of fact, they said in August. We're happening a little bit sooner. And there's a bit of concern that the president might have to again put in place another lockdown between the counties. And people are worried about that because he did say in his speech that he's going to confirm this in the next 21 days. And at the rate things are going, we may be looking at another shutdown.
That's pretty much unfortunate. I would hate to imagine that that's what we're predicting, but it's a reality on ground based on how much, of course, we've experienced the surges over time, and the fact that, again, as we were told, that it's all dependent on us, on how we get to handle this and how we behave. But clearly, we have not gone as expected, or we've not taken the direction of taking more precautions or care as expected by the Ministry of Health, and that is on page 6 of the People Daily, taking us back to page 5 of the People Daily, where it says that there are possibilities of us getting a vaccine. Let's see where it is. Here we are. Yes, and yes, hope for vaccine as trials move to second, third phase. This has also been captured on the Standard newspaper, and it has gone through phase 1 out of 45, all developed immune reaction and antibodies, meaning it might work. Let's see whether we can get a hold of that story. Here it is: coronavirus killing diabetic blood pressure patients more. And also there's a story on how much, of course, the U.S. is working towards getting, yes, here it is, the first vaccine test in U.S. revved up people's immune systems. And should we have some hope on this one? But just how nigh is it?
I don't want to be so pessimistic. We should have some, but also we need to understand that in countries such as even Hong Kong, South Korea, where they had opened up and then closed schools, they have said that the virus is mutating. And also another thing to be able to understand about the coronavirus is the fact that after you cure or heal from it, you're not necessarily 100% yourself. There are cases coming out of Italy where your breathing is still affected. There's brain damage that people are concerned about. Your immune system is no longer the same. So people are not the way they used to be. So that means that it does leave an impact on your body. And as much as a vaccine might be able to reduce the spread, considering how quickly it's spreading, it doesn't negate us from the fact that it still will have an impact on you for a lifetime. So it's worrying, because even when we talk about viruses, they're very complicated. We can even talk about HIV and the fact that HIV doesn't have a vaccination at the moment. We have antiviral medication that you can take, ARVs, to be able to sustain your life for a matter of time. But then we're talking about corona that came in last year, and we're expecting to have a vaccine with results within the next year. I'll say that is a very tall mountain that we're trying to climb. I'll tell people that this virus is going to be here for a very long time. Everybody is going to have access to that vaccine. A part of us is going to have to get used to living with this disease for a very long time.
All right, and of course also this trial, AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine that is being conducted by Oxford University in the United Kingdom in conjunction with Cambridge Wellcome Trust. Cambridge is also, of course, involved in that particular trial, but it's set to land into the country. And of course, as time goes by, we're going to get information from the Ministry of Health. But as of course you put it, I think we might need to just take a chill pill for a while as we figure out what next, because it is too early to celebrate. But we cross fingers for the best all the same. Crossing over to some bit of politics, and Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko is now decrying of harassment from Mohamed Abadi-led Nairobi Metropolitan Service. Sonko was appearing before Senate's Public Accounts Committee over audit queries, and as Elizabeth Mutuko now reports, the county boss wants the service to be placed under his administration.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Appearing before the Senate's Public Accounts Committee, Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko has insisted that the Mohamed Badi-led Nairobi Metropolitan Service, a high court had ruled that the service, which runs the number of functions in Nairobi, was not legally constituted.
Me as the governor of Nairobi, I'm saying legalize NMS. Let it be an entity under the county government of Nairobi. Then we give them the money. Mr. Chair, we respect the president. We respect the rule of law. Today the president is in power. Maybe after 3 years, questions will be raised. Why did you give money to NMS and it is illegal? Nitatafutwa mali niko Mr. Munio kwa hii committee. Why did you do that? It is illegal, Mr. Chair.
Sonko now decrying of harassment from the NMS, which he is proposing to be transferred to operate under his administration.
I'm raising this issue because we want this committee or the Senate to harmonize these working operations between us and NMS.
NMS boss Mohammed Badi has been claiming he is not interested in power struggle between him and the county boss. A section of senators, however, claiming that NMS is illegal.
Mentioning an entity which is not before us. I think the best case scenario, from where I sit, you need to tell him he's out of order for mentioning an entity that is not before us. What maybe he could probably ask, Mr. Chair, is ask His Excellency the Governor to give his views.
We should be listening to what the Governor is saying so that when we retire, to be able to think about the way forward, we can then be able to give a substantive ruling. Because I really think we are being unfair to either the Governor or even whatever information we get. Mr. Chairman, Article 125 gives us the power.
It is not only being able to access the office, it is also some of these staff have been redeployed to Nairobi Metropolitan Services. So all these issues, we can't avoid this issue of NMS because one, some of the issues that we need to audit are some of the issues that the staff that have been deployed, and the Governor has said a very critical point, that he is not even aware the law was not following in redeployment of those staff to NMS.
Request for adjournment does not mean that the Governor does not want to appear to this committee. He is requesting for adjournment so that we find a way of facilitating his production of documents that we need.
Sonko sought an adjournment of the meeting convened to grill him over audit queries. He said he didn't have documents to submit to the panel to explain the queries.
We are aware of what is going on. You are permitted to submit to this committee either in the way of a petition or in the way of everything else that you want to do before the committee to the Senate, and you are very well briefed about how Senate functions, and then this matter will be referred to the relevant committee for adjudication and for discussion, and they will have an opportunity to appear before that committee and explain yourself the way forward.
Sonko further accusing the national government of delaying over 200 million Kenya shillings owed as pending bills.
Mr. Chair, here Nairobi County, pia ni pesa, si makaratasi. So we are appealing to this House, Mr. Chair, also to assist us in getting this debt the national government is owing us, 236 billion, to be cleared. This is a lot of money, Mr. Chair.
President Uhuru Kenyatta has been pushing Treasury to clear pending bills. Elizabeth Mutuku, TV47 Nairobi.
All right, the tussle in Nairobi County continues. The cartoon edition of the People Daily paints a picture of what is happening right here in Nairobi County, and the fact that, yes, there are two bulls that are fighting, and as they would say it in Swahili, fahali wawili wakipigana, nyasi ndio huumia. So the question is, what is left for the people of Nairobi County? And of course, Sonko trying to display some high affection for the people of Nairobi, arguing that, yes, if Badi works well and the benefit is felt by the people who voted him, then well and good, but clearly also depicting a different picture in regards to his utterances. And he says, Badi, I am still the boss and I am in charge, as Badi would say, or General Badi would say. So, I mean, it looks like it's not going to be an easy road or an easy one in Nairobi, and it's not coming anytime soon. In as much as we all thought that the coming in of the NMS is going to bring changes and transform the activities within Nairobi after, some years of course, bad moments, terrible moments, and what one would term as, terrible governance.
Actually, most Nairobians have no clue of what's happening in Nairobi. And then when we think about the transition of NMS and how surprised we were to see, the president present and Sonko signing a document. Yeah. And we've constantly seen Sonko at the forefront of drama, frankly. Yeah. Even the way he appeared before the committee, he came with all sorts of energy and accusations, but absolutely no paperwork. absolutely no documents. And that shows you how he behaves. But it's true, for a fact, the way the NMS was transferred, there was absolutely no public participation. So there were irregularities. But the fact that we also witnessed him sending a document that he might have not understood or not fully comprehended what it meant makes you wonder the kind of leadership. Because what it looks like is that he's trying to show himself as not a leader who is a failure. It looks more of an ego battle rather than services to the people of Nairobi. Because right, if you ask individuals, the comments that they're making, even the differences that they're seeing within the CBD, a lot of people are impressed. A lot of people are happy. They're actually seeing things happening so quickly, something that they've not seen for years.
Oh, yeah?
It's on this one, yes. In fact, even with the walkway, if you even check on Twitter, people taking pictures, surprised at how quickly sidewalks have appeared and how even there's no parking in some streets. Just the changes have been so fast with this period of a few months. So even when we talk about Sonko, does he have the support of the people who live within Nairobi? Or are they just tired of his theatrics?
Right.
And that's what it appears to be, a battle within the higher level that has nothing to do with the several stakeholders that's in the CBD.
All right, and speaking of which, now that you talk of Nairobians experiencing something that, at least is what would be considered as a sigh of relief and, some good news or some aspect of, services being delivered to them, development being felt to the ground. Nairobi's thirsty slums enjoy free water for the very first time, courtesy of these programs that are ongoing. So we can only wait to see. But, the catch-22 here then is, in as much as NMS is doing justice to the people, why then would the court proceed to consider the actions or whatever it is that is ongoing and the signing of these documents and, the transferring of some functions to NMS or to the national government as something that is illegal?
Our courts do consider process. Process is extremely important, and there are irregularities in that. So there is a case, because as far as we're concerned, we have a law and we're governed by the Constitution, and state departments and offices have particular procedures and processes that they do to follow. The fact that some of them were skipped, that can be and will be an issue. So that's why that it's being heard, and that's why it's actually being processed.
All right, well, we await to see what will play out in regards to the same, and we also delve deep into that conversation later on the broadcast. But elsewhere, 11 people, among them trustees of the Kenya Ports Authority pension scheme and a lawyer, have returned 70 million shillings to the authority, money that they had fraudulently obtained in a land transaction. And now this follows an out-of-court settlement after the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission charged the 11 with obtaining the 70 million shillings from the Kenya Ports Authority Retirement Benefits Scheme. Now, the asset recovery targeted lawyer Joseph Karanja, Kanye Cecilia Faith Mango, and Michael Kioko Maundu, all trading as Kanye Company and advocates. Others are Kikambala Development Company Limited, Ephraim Minor Ringo, Jen Jerry Karanja, Celine Consultants Limited, Frederick Otieno Oyugi, Joy Kavuti Asiema, Joan Zawadi Karema, Juma Benson Thoya, Harry John Paul, Aregi and Maurice Mlimu. The ASCC has moved to court following investigations into allegations that the trustees had illegally and corruptly entered into the agreement for purchase of 100 acres of agricultural plots area in Kilifi County at a price of 700 million shillings. And the National Assembly has approved the nomination of Nancy Janet Gathungu as the new Auditor General following her nomination by President Uhuru Kenyatta. She is expected to succeed Edward Wako, whose term expired in August 2019 after an 8-year tenure, while endorsing the report of Finance and Planning Committee, which recommended the appointment of Gathungu. Members of Parliament have, however, criticized the delay in the nomination of a new Auditor General following Owoko's departure. The office has been 4 months open.
Someone once, Mr. Speaker, told me that if you are keen to notice the former Auditor General, Mr. Edward Wako, usually used to keep his hair completely shaved. But it was not by choice. I'm told within a few months of him being in that office and taking over that office, his hair was falling very fast. And before I came this afternoon, I had to talk to, and the reason was because of the magnitude of the constitutional weight of that office. But before I came to this afternoon to this chamber, Mr. Speaker, I talked to a friend of his, and I'm told, since he left office, his hair is growing back. So is mine.
I trained as an auditor myself from my early days. And I actually know what it means for somebody to stick in audit for that long. It's like wine. You know, the longer you're there, the better you get. You know, you mature. You've seen it all in terms of all the variations of what people can do, what cannot do.
So I'm just wondering how many more women are out there with these amazing skills that we are not recognizing. And that is why whenever we see a situation where a woman has been recognized like Nancy has, then those of us who are pushing the gender agenda are very happy.
These offices, they are given to us, independent offices, so that you can have courage, you can have independence, and you can have professionalism. If you lose any of those, then the need for independence of those offices go, and Kenyans will start demanding that they are necessary. Let us hold on to the truth and expectation of the Constitution.
Janet, unfortunately, she's coming to office with a lot of question marks that she must really work hard to demonstrate that those who overlooked her were wrong, and those who have now found her fit to occupy this position are right. And she must demonstrate to Kenyans that that stone which was rejected became the cornerstone in terms of upholding accountability, transparency, and integrity in the management of public finance and resources in this country.
This House approves the appointment of Miss Nancy Janet Gathungu as the Auditor General. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Well, that cannot go without being discussed. And finally, we have an Auditor General in office. And the previous story was in regards to the aspect of corruption and, awarding of tenders and also, projects illegally. And then finally, these people decide to give out, or bring back the money. What would be considered as asset recovery, it's not such a common thing, especially when we're talking about, the monies that have been fleeced from the taxpayers, or maybe land or assets that have been fleeced from the taxpayers' coffers. I mean, what does it make? And now that we're talking about an Auditor General who's a lady for that matter, so upholding the 2/3 gender rule, and also looking at the fact that, it has taken a while, like the members of Parliament have said. But we also know how much, troubles, of course, bedeviled Edward Wako during his tenure. But here he comes, here he's gone, of course, did whatever it is that he could do. But still the fight on graft becomes a problem. In as much as the Auditor General's office would release reports day in, day out, nothing much is being achieved in terms of us dealing with graft in the country.
When it comes to the fight against corruption, asset recovery is going to be one of the most important pillars when it comes to that. And even when we see within the period that Edward Wako came in 2011, it was right after our constitution, and it was a breath of fresh air. We were excited about having this new law, and there he is met with struggles which appeared to get even worse as county assemblies and county governments began to entrench themselves. But I think it's unfortunate that a lot of the arguments during his time was where he was from. The fact that we would even bring about tribe, or even when he would share these reports, and then we're left with what do we do with them? And the fact is that Kenyan people still don't understand the importance of those budgets, and the fact that the Constitution gives a lot of direct power to them to participate in social accountability processes. We also have to remember that during these very few months, we've seen a lot of donor funding coming into the country, especially when it's coming to fighting the coronavirus. A lot of it has gone to county governments, but there are no accountability measures that have been put in place. So she will have a very hard task in terms of accounting those billions at the end of the day. And also the fact that Kenya came third when it came to the foreign accounts that we have. So this, I believe, even the case that we're talking about, the 70 million, it's great, but it is truly a small fish. Because if we talk about the billions that is outsourced in countries like Switzerland, and the fact that even the president came and signed an agreement with our president to start the process of asset recovery, is a positive. But it definitely needs the goodwill of our president. As far as the new Auditor General, it's going to be very difficult for her, granted, but it's also important for us as the public to understand that we will have to also work with that office as citizens, as having a right to understanding how these budgets work, and even understanding our representatives and what they're doing with their monies in government. As long as she's working in that space alone and sharing these reports, then it will die there. It will not go anywhere. There has to be action taken from different stakeholders, from the church to civil society, to people in general, being concerned about where every shilling goes, because it is going to count. Starting from today, it will count. The economy is at a complete downturn. We don't know when it's going to pick up again, maybe in the next year or two, not even a few months. We're talking about children going back to school next year. We're talking about people's businesses that have collapsed. How are people going to sustain themselves? So people are going to be concerned about every single shilling. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on her to appear that she's doing something. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on her to be able to show that action through information and even making sure that even office is willing to support her. Without that support, she's frankly going to be useless in that department.
All right. Well, we wait to see what will happen. Of course, such a hard task or tough task ahead of her, but we can wish her nothing but the best, because her good performance will definitely culminate to good results for the common mwananchi, for us to get accountability and for us to be successful on the fight against graft. And Deputy President William Ruto allies have been placed in less influential committees in the National Assembly. In the changes tabled yesterday in the House, former Majority Leader Aden Duale is the only Ruto ally who got an influential committee position and will now serve as a member of the House's Public Accounts Committee, as Joash Onsari reports.
The changes in House committees were tabled in House Wednesday, with Deputy President William Ruto's allies who were recently discharged placed in less influential House committee. Former Majority Leader Aden Duale is the only Ruto ally who was placed in an influential committee after he was placed at the Public Accounts Committee in the National Assembly. Kikuyu legislator Kimani Ichung'wah has been chairing the House Budget Committee, will now serve as a member of the House's Welfare and Facilities Committee. His position at the Budget Committee being taken by Kieni MP Kanini Kega.
Again, want to thank you very, very much for according me a specific seat with a ranking member. Again, I became the first ranking member in the House, and I want to thank the House Business Committee.
I want to assure you, Honorable Junet, I will make sure that you are properly facilitated. Even the Deputy Leader of Minority, Mzee Baba of the House, Mzee Nuru Angwenyi, Mzee Maina Commander, we will ensure whether it is virtually or physically, they are properly facilitated.
16 Ruto allies were discharged from various House committees in the recent Jubilee purge.
I can see the former majority leader can do better as a backbencher than where he was, Mr. Speaker. Today, the kind of contribution he has made to this House, Mr. Speaker, are very, very good, Mr. Speaker. I have never doubted the capacity of Honorable Ichungo. He's one of the best members of Parliament in this House, Mr. Speaker, having served with him now in 2 terms and as the chair. And I know he will serve very well in the Committee of Member Services, the catering committee, Mr. Speaker.
A section of MPs, however, dissatisfied with the changes.
Mr. Speaker, I've gone through the list. Quite a number of members in this House are in 2-3 committees, and the worst are 4. Mr. Speaker, to be fair, let us have members being given equal opportunity in this House.
We must look at these things, evaluate things, Mr. Speaker, so that we do things objectively, so that we have equality and equity, Mr. Speaker.
House various committees are expected to conduct their elections Thursday. Joash Onsare, TV47, Nairobi.
All right, here we are. We're the People Daily and also captured in the Standard newspaper, and Uhuru Raila cleared the way for BBI. The 2 leaders' handshake agenda is likely to have a smooth sailing in the House as members of Parliament approve the list of reconstituted committees packed with loyalties. And of course, some of the loyalties faces captured right there on the front page of the People Daily. Remember, it was just last week that there were complaints from ODM that there were likelihoods that Jubilee is not going to be unfair in terms of, awarding of the committee seats. But clearly, this went in favor of them and in what would have been expected. And as the talk goes on ground, as captured on page 2 of the People Daily, is that this is was for their own interest, and especially on the legal affairs team that was tailored for report implementation. And in this case, we're talking about the BBI report. So President and Raila cleared the way for BBI's house. And here you go. So this is an outright smooth sail for the BBI, because Ben, within the house, it will just sail through unopposed.
I think it will go through and was just because of the things that we're witnessing happening in the House, where voices of dissent are criticized and pushed toward a corner. So people are not so free to express themselves. But what we need to be concerned about is what this BBI is pushing. Granted, I've read the document. There's a lot of information, but then we seem to highlight on mainly the executive, on mainly representation, and mainly talking about Prime Minister having maybe 5 deputies. But that's not the only thing that is contained with it. What I am hoping to see, because we've not seen the final report yet, is a review of the constitution that we have. The fact that we've had it for 10 years, are there places that we can improve on, rather than implementing new things without understanding where we messed up previously. Because I think we're going to be wasting a lot of our time and assuming that we have public support in this process. The public, frankly, doesn't know what is contained within that entire document. And the fact that we're talking about it passing what? What amendments? What are we talking about passing? Because there was so much information that didn't even need legalities to be able to be implemented. Some of them were talking about streamlining state departments, which is perfectly fine. But then that doesn't mean that we have to go in and completely change everything that already exists. There are some things that are working currently. We need to be able to identify what those things are and continue to support them. And where they're not working, we need to agree to be able to take them out. But I think what is mainly being overlooked are the continuous issues that we have. As much as BI talks about national cohesion, here we have representatives who are feeling excluded from the process, or that perhaps others will have more opportunities compared to us because of the party that they are aligned to, which goes against what BBI is about. BBI was supposed to be about equality, about every one of us as a citizen having access in this country as a citizen. And I think that when we do not talk about historical injustices, because even at the time when they had the conversation in Narok and even in Mai, people are bringing up land issues, where people are bringing up historical injustices, things that we do not dive deeply into, and we might not be able to. Recently, we've been hearing reports about residents in Gong being evicted. Not too long ago, we were talking about Mau Mau being evicted. So when we have those instances and our population continues to grow, if we do not look at our land issues carefully in terms of access to title deeds, community land, when we're talking about areas like Mombasa, then we're going to be back at square one, where elections only instigate violence. They do not necessarily bring about the violence. It is because of issues that have existed previously, and this is the opportunity where people feel that this is where they can air out those particular issues.
All right, well, all this we wait to see whether at all, if there's anything that will show up or will be there, especially in the report, that will be of the interest of the common mwananchi, as the leaders are saying out here that this is all about the people and has got nothing to do with their very own, individual interest. And that aside, local flights resumed operations yesterday after they were grounded for 3 months consecutively ago, following the order by President Uhuru Kenyatta in response to the fight against coronavirus. Flights were dispatched from the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, Moi International Airport, and Kisumu International Airport to different destinations in the country, as Mwangi Minor reports.
At exactly 11 a.m. at the Moi International Airport, Mombasa, it was another moment of pure joy as a Kenya Airways flight, an Embraer 90, touched down to a water cannon salute. It was the first domestic flight to be received at the airport 99 days later after travel restrictions were effected. The Kenyan flag, flown by one member of the crew, flew high, giving high hopes that soon the flag will be flown in international airspace after a period of 3 months. The airplane was disinfected first before the passengers embarked. On board was the Kenya Airways Managing Director Alan Kilavuka and Acting Managing Director Kenya Airports Authority Alex Gitari.
Sisi kwetu tunataka kuhakikishia wasafiri wote kwamba tumeweka mikakati yote ambayo yanatakikana ili wawe salama kwenye ndege. Tunahakikisha kwamba watu kuna usafi wa kutosha, yani sanitization.
Nataka watu wasikie kweli viwanja vyetu ni safe na waanze kusafiri. Kwa sasa hivi tutaanza na safari za humu nchini domestic, lakini kuanzia tarehe 1 Agosti tutaanza hizo safari za nchi za nje, international.
A jumbo jet operated flight had also touched down at the airport at 8 a.m. and left moments later for Nairobi. The flight giving hope amidst a pandemic ravaging the whole world. Mombasa Deputy Governor Dr. William Kingi and a host of tourism stakeholders who had gone to receive the flight exuded confidence that tourism in the county will receive a major boost since the county is a tourism hub.
Hapa Mombasa na pwani kwa jumla ni mahali pa muhimu kwa kuwa na mikutano. Kwa hivyo hiyo biashara yote ilikuwa tumepoteza. Kwa hivyo tunaona leo kwa sababu ya hii resumption ya hii flights za kutoka Nairobi kuja Mombasa, pia biashara zitafunguka.
Kingi would also flag off the plane on its return trip to JKIA on board 71 passengers. Meanwhile, in Kisumu, Governor Anyang' Nyong'o was at the Kisumu International Airport to receive a flight from the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and also flagged off another KQ flight. A resumption of international flights is scheduled for August 1st. The resumption of flights is a major boost to the tourism industry, but it is not yet a moment of celebration since the fight against the COVID-19 is far from being won. Mwangi Maina, TV 47, Nairobi.
Well, I don't know if there's much to say about this, but as you can see, also captured on the front page of the People Daily, yes, the flights in and out to these different parts that were considered hotspots especially. And of course, officially, it looks like it's going to be business, business, not as usual, but business that we've missed for the longest of time, even as we await for the maiden flights that will take off in August to different parts of the world. So, reason for us to celebrate. Remember that the flights are not running in less capacity in comparison to what would have been of the SGR or maybe the public service vehicles on the roads. This time around, of course, they say there's going to be proper scrutiny, but then again, with the flights, it's a different occasion because then the numbers are full.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult to stop the spread without separating people. As much as they're talking about having to sanitize several points as you enter the airport and even checking your temperature, at the end of it, if you're sitting next to someone on the flight, you have still sat next to them and you're still within proximity to be able to spread the virus. And as much as they're saying that they're not going to be giving meals on the flight, they are still giving water.
Yeah.
So you're still going to have to remove your mask and you're still going to have to open your mouth and again, spreading the virus. But I think what we need to recognize is the fact how flights have completely changed. The other time where we saw a drastic change within our airports was after 9/11. After a terrorist attack, security measures were put in place globally, and then now we really have to go through all sorts of scanners to be able to enter an airplane. I think now, going forward, it's going to be the same, but this time it's going to be checking on your health. Because who's to say that not another virus such as this one is going to spring up again? It probably will, considering how our population continues to grow. So if you are unhealthy, if you have a high temperature, it's going to be very difficult for you to fly in the future. And that's something that also we're going to have to see our airports now beginning to invest in this machinery. And how are they going to protect those officers or individuals who work within the airports? Does that mean that they're going to have to start wearing masks and head masks as well when it comes to gear? Because when we're talking about PPE, people are negotiating whether flight attendants should be wearing PPEs, considering that they expose themselves every single day as much as doctors do when patients walk into a hospital. So I think as far as health goes, there's going to be a lot of investment that our government's going to have to look into that's going to impact the way we travel from today onwards in the future.
All right. Well, of course, we wait to see how that will fare on or how it will fruition, even as we cross fingers that, yes, we're not going to go back where we were before after 21 days. Now, police officers in Murang'a County have launched a manhunt for 2 sub-chiefs and a police officer after they were found pants down, literally with a 16-year-old girl inside the Aberdare forest in Murang'a County. The father to the girl is deeply saddened by the incident, saying it is unfortunate that the 3 government officers are not role models to the community. Education CS Professor George Magoha condemned the act, saying no one is above the law and immediate action should be taken against the suspects.
It is in Aberdare Forest where 2 sub-chiefs, one from Totho and another from Wanjere area in Murang'a County, and 1 police officer allegedly engaging in sexual act with a minor. The trio fled immediately after their cover was blown. Only the 16-year-old girl was left telling disturbing story. A resident in the area witnessed the four entering Aberdare Forest and alerted fellow residents. A resident in the area witnessed the four entering Aberdare Forest and alerted fellow residents who later met the government officers.
Walienda wakakaa kwa msitu, nikaona wamekaa, nikatafuta namba ya mama yake, nikampigia simu na tukapiga duru, watu wakakuja. Wawili wakapotea, moja ndio tulishika.
The father of the girl is saddened by the incident and now wants justice for his daughter, who is a Form 3 student.
Mimi niko na uchungu sana. Hata mimi nasikia kama watu wale wanajinyonga kwa watoto wao, ni uchungu. Sasa mimi vile mimi nataka serikali ichukue jukumu kali.
Area Police Commander John Ogola confirmed the dreadful incident, saying investigations are underway. At the same time, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha said no one will be allowed to deprive minors of their rights. In his tour in Murang'a County today, he added that he will ensure that justice is done for the girl.
There is nobody, to the last time I checked, there is nobody who is above the law. And this corruption is blocking access to the law. Let us have the facts, and we shall take it to the high heavens, even before the president himself, and justice shall be done.
President Uhuru Kenyatta, in a recent statement, warned chiefs that they will be held responsible for cases of teenage pregnancies reported in the area.
Instances of teenage pregnancy have also escalated. I appeal to all our social institutions, including our religious institutions, to exercise civic responsibility to bring these unfortunate trends to an end.
Nanok Lauren, TV 47.
All right, it's pretty much unfortunate, and this amid talks of how best we can find our students back to school. And the Ministry of Health arguing that, or the Ministry of Education saying that, no school will be allowed to open, or schools will not be reopened until every other school meets the threshold of ensuring that they have taken the measures that are supposed to be taken to deal with COVID-19. And our girls are still out here. Just how safe is the home for our children?
This period has shown us how unsafe homes are. The fact that schools are safe houses is so worrying, and it's unfortunate the number of teenage pregnancies that we're seeing, because it also means that when schools eventually open, those young girls are not going to be able to join school. So it also means that the number of dropouts is going to increase, and the number of predators that exist in our midst are just too many. And what does the law do to protect children? And then that shows the gap that exists. But even when we talk about safe houses, that are actually supported by the government, there are none. In fact, it's Makueni County that's coming up with one very, very recently, Meru County as well. They are now grappling with this issue and trying to create these safe homes. But even when we talk about gender-based violence, because we have to talk about domestic abuse in the homes, so the children, also the mothers, also women. We've seen the cases of murders increasing within homes between family members. That is so grotesque that we can't even imagine that this is happening in our country to our people. But I feel that even when the churches closed, a lot of women or even children would go to the church for refuge. They would speak to pastors, they would speak to elders, but now even that was taken away from them. So they are stuck in this place where they feel unsafe, and the only thing that they are hoping is that they will not be killed before this period ends. So much more needs to be done to protect our children. Much more needs to be done when it comes to identifying who these pedophiles are, who these predators are, because even as much as we are condemning those individuals and telling them as sub-chiefs or in government it's very wrong and chastising them, the question remains, are they going to go to jail for that? Are they going to be charged? How long will the court system take to be able to do that? The scrutiny of even a child reporting these issues is very difficult. It's intimidating. Can you imagine a 10-year-old and 11-year-old going to a police station to report this? How? There's no even children's desk. And even if they are to tell their mother or their parents, are they going to be believed? Or are they just dealing with so many things? You're just told, you know what, this one, just leave alone. How many cases have we seen of that? Because a lot of times it's individuals that we know and it's family members. And family tells you, let's just forget it, let's bury it and move on with life.
Yeah.
These are some of the things that we honestly need to talk about as our community and hold people accountable for the injustices that they are doing to our children.
All right. And this one, I'll do it a little bit different. This particular story on matters devolution, you realize that now, of course, the Council of Governors Chair Wycliffe Oparanya wants the proposed country revenue sharing formula to be implemented this year. Of course, after that proposal by Majority Leader Samuel Pogisio to dispute the formula, argue that the formula should be implemented starting next year. And of course, the senators are yet to agree on this formula and just to deliberate on how much monies will be shared and how they will be shared at the level of the county. And bringing me to this story also of Madam Anne Waiguru, where the MCAs have decided to stand off the budget, or maybe they have decided to stop the budgetary, of course, of Kirinyaga County, that is the 2020-2021 budgets. Of course, they voted to reject it, and that deals a huge blow to Governor Anne Waiguru. So what do you make of this standoff, even as I'll leave you with that story, of course, of the Council of Governors?
With that story, the big debate is whether the equation should use land or population, because we have to also identify that there are counties that have been left behind because of lack of resources. So what would that mean? They have a fewer population, but perhaps greater land. But then they need more finances to be able to keep up with the rest of the counties. So I think that it's a very difficult debate. And of course, it comes down to what is the interest of the county. So we're seeing people's interests beginning to conflict. But they do have to come to an agreement because the counties do need those resources. And it will be important to be able to understand, do we continue to plug in more resources in areas that have been receiving resources, but they are more densely populated, but we continue to leave the gap of those who haven't been receiving these resources, but have a lot of land, but not necessarily access to facilities? How do we view ourselves as a country? Do we want us to be equal across the board so that the real essence of devolution would be that I, as a young person, can decide to move to Marsabit because of opportunity? But that's not the case right now. Now people are moving from Marsabit to Nairobi.
Still in search of opportunities.
Yes. But if we were to be even across the board, then it would be much better for the younger population because they are the ones who are more mobile and open to migration, not older populations who are in rural areas. So also, it's about understanding the majority population and how we view ourselves and what we depend on for our economy. When we talk about agriculture, which is mainly rural areas, but those are the areas that we're not focusing on developing. So I think even in this battle, we're going to see a lot of tug and pull between the Senate. Frankly, I believe that it's going to be the population that wins at the end of the day because it has been the population for the longest time and change has been difficult and normally slow. As far as for Waiguru, she's going to battle with the MCAs. She will until the end of her term. They're going to continue to frustrate her.
The battle is on for her. We get to know that, yes?
Oh, yeah.
Well, we get to know that some more also in the next segment and how best she's going to be able to balance this because it's incumbent upon her, if at all, she needs to experience and, ensure that the people of Kirinyaga get justice out of this. In the best interest of time, I'll let go of you, Nerim Wako. Thank you so much for the great insights and looking forward to have you some other time. We cross over for a break and we'll be right back on the Current Affairs segment.